When it comes to players like Kyron Paris, Austin Wells, and Alexis Diaz, in the famous words of Snoop Dogg, is it time to drop it like it's hot? We've got those names and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DonMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you could find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify, that allows 5-star ratings and reviews. We would truly, truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, but what's most important to Matt and I and you guys, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experience where you're going to get text messaging alerts going right to your phone. And guys, when we're doing our waiver wire episodes, you're going to get the rankings, telling you how you should prioritize those players and a little bit of extra detail. And you're going to get those prospect call-up notifications going right to your phone. And guys, you're not getting this anywhere else in the industry. So give us a chance on the Subtext platform. You can find the link in our bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And guess what, Matt? We get to get right into it today. And, I mentioned Snoop at the top, Matt. I think we're going to call this episode something. It's going to be the Drop It Like It's Hot episode. And if you guys like it, sound off in the comments. If you don't like it, let us know. We're trying to figure out, a final episode to mix into our rotation, and we would love to hear what you guys think. And if you have any comments and thoughts of what we should do, please sound off. But all right, Matt, who's on the Drop It Like It's Hot radar first today?
First off, I feel it's only appropriate if we do this.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
So, it's a tradition whenever we talk about this. But let's get into it. So let's start with Kyron Paris and what the heck is going on with this guy. So Paris started off like a bat out of hell, was absolutely monstrous, and then just kind of like slowly fell into the distance. And hey, this is life. This is fantasy baseball, where a guy can go over the last month 13 runs, 5 bombs, 8 Rs, 5 stolen bases, and at that time he was batting about a nice 300. Now he's done absolutely diddly over the last week, literally diddly, and we're back in the same spot of who is this guy? And that is the question. Well, the question is, he was a guy you should have sold high on. He's a guy that we did tell you to do that.
We did.
He's a guy that you should have counted him out as a streamer and not a long-term solution. And lastly, he's just a player that was just overperforming and could not sustain it. So what do we do with this now? If you did not sell high, if you did not just think of him that way, and you dropped other options instead, and try and go get those options back and drop this guy so fast it's not even funny. Kyron Paris, I think, was a flash in the pan that I think we'll be talking about him probably in about like a month or two when he goes to another heater. And then again, we're going to be in the same scenario. And again, we'll tell you to sell high and then we'll tell you to drop him. But, he's just going to be Mr. Irrelevant for pretty much the whole season, except for those maybe week or two's at a time where he decides to show up to the plate.
Yeah, Matt, I'm right there with you, and I'm just going to say it again. We told you guys to try and package Kyron Paris in a trade. This is we're still in what's pretty much the best time of year to trade, because we still don't have the full story written on anybody. We still don't really know what's going on with anybody. So the guys that we do know what's going on with them, we do our must trade episode every week. You should definitely got to check those out. We're telling you who to buy on the guys that we know that are solid. A guy like Kyron Paris, who, like Matt said, started off really hot, has no minor league track record. He's a big steals guy. Yeah, he's super fast. Doesn't really have much else. A little bit of pop in the bat. The team isn't good. He's not going to get a lot of runs and RBIs. The batting average is super suspect. It's always been suspect for Paris. He's 40% owned on Yahoo. Of course, he plays for those Angels. I don't know if we mentioned that yet. I think we did. But yeah, that's why I said the team is no good. That's why he's not going to get any counting stats. Matt, you said the last week. I'll give you the last 2 weeks. 2 runs, no homers, no RBIs, 1 steal, 121 for Kyron Paris. 40% owned on Yahoo. Second base is a little bit better than we thought it was going to be. There's some sneaky guys, you should go out there and pick up. Once again, watch our, must-add players. We do 2 episodes. We do 2 a week. Go check those out. You definitely got some second baseman over the last week that you definitely need to go add. Kyron Paris on the drop it like a top meter is like an 8 for me. But let's move on to this next guy. This next guy is actually super interesting. Let's talk Austin Wells, right? After the first couple games of the year, nobody would have guessed that Wells would have been on this episode. But, man, he's been struggling. Even if you look at the numbers on the whole year, it's 7 runs, 4 homers, 11 RBIs, a 181 batting average. I think he hit 3 of those home runs over the first, 7 games or so. And then even the last 2 weeks for, Wells, 2 homers, 3 runs, 6 RBIs, 171 batting average. He's not a drop for me. There's pop in that bat still. I don't think the batting average is ever going to be great. He might be like a 220, 230 guy with like a 25 homer upside, but he plays for the Yankees. He hits in, like the 7 hole. They move consistently, but they move him around the lineup from time to time. The counting stats should be okay. I'm not dropping him just yet. He's a hold for me. On the drop it like a top meter, I'm going to give Wells a probably like a 3-4. If him versus Agustin Ramirez, who we talked about, or I talked about yesterday, that's a good fight. Probably not dropping him for him yet. If Ivan Herrera is still out there in the leagues and he's on the IL and you could stash him, might want to do that just to have a little backup. But I'm getting a little bit worried about Wells, just not dropping him yet though.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you pick a catcher at the end of your draft, right? But I mean, what catchers aren't performing right now? I mean, there's not many. So even if you drop him, you drop a power bat, essentially is what you're going to drop with Austin Wells. It just kind of makes no sense. Diaz isn't performing and others that just should be doing better things. And they're all going to catch up. And Austin Wells is going to catch a stride. And it's just going to be ebbs and flows. But there's not many better options out there. So he's a hold for me, even if it gets real bad, because I don't care about batting average when it comes to Austin Wells. I just care about that pop and that bat and the ribbies that he could possibly produce. Guys that are hitting in front of him right now, he's hitting 7 in the lineup, but it's still Volpe, Jazz, and Goldschmidt hitting directly right in front of him. And those guys get on base. So, as long as they're getting on base, Wells is going to have, RBI potential. So therefore I want him on my team. And again, he hits in Yankee Stadium. These are things that you want. So I'm not dropping him. He's about a 0 for me because he was my ride or die. Hopefully he was your last pick or a waiver wire pickup and you don't care, but he is probably going to have a better finish. He might finish as a top 12 catcher at the end of the year just because of the power in that bat, not because of batting average.
Yeah, Matt, I want if I could chime back in. I want to just vibe off what you said. Literally, unless you drafted Cal Raleigh, Will Smith, or picked up Carson Kelly, you're probably not doing great at the catcher position. Like most of the leagues, most of the players in your league are probably not doing great at the catcher position. Let's hold on, we're saying, let's hold on to the guys that we, came to the dance with and, see how they do, especially like top 12 guys, like Austin Wells and those types. So I think we're both saying hold here on Austin Wells. Matt, you want to grab this next guy or should we, take a quick break?
You know what? Let the anticipation poll build. Guys, coming up next, we're talking about a Reds player that, quite honestly, do we drop him? Do we not? I don't know. You'll have to wait, and you'll have to find out right after this.
And all right, guys, did you know that Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required at all. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on Fire TV. They have the latest technology for elevated playing with their Wi-Fi 6E and auto low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother and more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. With their endless entertainment, they got that 4K streaming, and you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. And all right, guys, one more thing before we move on here. I need to talk to you one more time about giving Matt and I a chance on the Subtext platform, right? So through Subtext, it's going to be that in-depth personalized experience where you're going to get those text message alerts going right to your phone. Once again, nobody's giving you those text message alerts right to your phone in the industry. You're going to get those call-up notifications when Roman Anthony, Painter, and the rest of those big names get called up. You'll know about it before your league. You'll be able to get to that waiver wire, pick them up. And then even when we do our waiver wire episodes, you're going to get those complete rankings of all 10 guys we've talked about. Sometimes we even throw in a few more, telling you how you should prioritize those pickups. And then even, there's just so much more on there. You could talk to us about, your league. If you need some help, you can send us over your roster. We'll take a look for you. Tell us what you think, some adjustments you might need to make. And, once again, that's all through the Subtext platform. And you can find the link in the bio wherever you're listening or watching if you want to give Matt and I a chance there. But Matt, I think you were teasing a Cincinnati Reds player right before we had to take a little break there. So who is it? I'm actually interested myself.
It's Spencer Steer, honestly. You know what? Look, Spencer Steer overperformed last year. Let's put it this way. He had a really, 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 really strong start come come April. He had literally 17 runs, 8 doubles, a triple, 3 bombs, 21 ribs, 7 stolen bases, and batted .252. The next month had power and counting stats and stuff. Batting average was in the toilet. Then June, batted .280, had 4 bombs, 16 ribs, but then the rest was .213, .240, 165. Power was there in July and June with 5 home runs and 4 home runs, but then September was ugly with 1. Stolen bases kind of were like, okay. But I feel like everything you look at him, like even though the stat line was pretty decent, wasn't really wonderful. And you look under the hood and you're just like, let's talk about it. 2024 xWOBA was really 315. Expected batting average was 235. Slug was 379. Average exit velocity was 88 miles an hour. He's only barreling 6% of the time, creating hard contact under 40%. Like all the things that would say, hey, this guy actually is doing better, that is able to sustain those kind of stat lines. Then you look at 2025, and 2025 says xWOBA is at 242. X batting average is 183. X slug is at 270. Average exit velocity is 86.9 miles an hour, barreling 4% of the time, creating hard contact 25% of the time. And it just list goes on and on of bad stats. And for him to have 10 runs, a home run, a stolen base, and batting 149 tells you that he overperformed last year. We're seeing all the wheels come off this year, and he's just overrated. And I don't think that he should be on anybody's team at this point. So he's a flat out graphics all entitled.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
And this is no haterade. This is just straight up like I wasn't too keen on him last year, and now I just get to see everything come to fruition this year, where all the doubts and things like that of the inconsistent play has just now come to fruition.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I had Steer on, a few of my bust lists coming into the year. Really wasn't about it. I will say this, I think the version that we saw of Steer last year is semi-legit in the sense of if you need a guy that can hit 20-ish home runs, steal 20-ish bags, and hit 230, 240, he's your guy. But I don't think he's good for much more than that. I think people look back to the 2023 season that Steer had, and they were hoping for more, that he could build off of that. I don't see it. I think the fact that he plays for the Reds in that park is helping him a lot more than we even think or realize. If he was on, a team that played in a worse park, or a not as hitter-friendly park as, there is in Cincinnati with Great American Small Park there, I think it's about time. I will give this advice though, right? If you're in a deeper league, you're in a deep 12, you're in a 15, you're in an NL only, that type of situation, hold. Don't drop him yet. There's better days ahead. He will go on a streak where he hits some homers, steals some bags. Then that's the opportunity to trade him. Right there, that's when you move it. When he gets hot, when he's in the midst of the like a hitting streak, that's when you do it. But if you're in a 10-man, definitely, it's definitely a drop. You're in a shallow league where the waiver wire looks good and you got some options. I think you could safely get rid of Steer at this point and move forward. Let's move on to this next guy though that I can't understand the ownership percentage. It's Brandon Nimmo of the New York Mets, 78% owned, huh? Weird for me. 8 runs, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, no steals, 196 batting average. I get that Nimmo's been pretty consistent throughout his career. Had a pretty decent season last year, if you will, and that the Mets themselves, the lineup looks better. But like I said, a decent year last year, 23 homers, 15 steals, 90 RBIs, 88 runs. The lineup's a lot better, so Nimmo's not going to be the one driving in a lot of runs anymore. Even though he does have 10 RBIs in the season, he's hitting between, he's been hitting like 6th, 4th some days, but still hasn't been capitalizing, and he's just been really struggling since April 14th. Has a bunch of 0 for games, only has 1 run, 1 RBI since then, and that's about 8-9 games. I don't think, once again, not a full-blown drop in those deeper leagues. Obviously you got a 5 outfielder league, that type of situation, not doing it. But 78% owned seems like a lot to me. I honestly think Nimmo, at this point in his career, yeah, he's got a little bit of pop in the bat, and if he's hitting in the right spot in the lineup, could be useful. But I still only think he's going to be maybe a 260 hitter, 20-ish home runs, and I don't think the runs and RBIs are going to look as good as they did last year. I think they drop off just because I don't think Nimmo's going to be as important to the Mets in that lineup when they get everything figured out, because they've been struggling with shit themselves, the whole team, even Juan Soto, has been struggling a bit. So Nimmo for me, in most cases, probably like a 5 on the drop at like a top meter. Holding in those deeper leagues, 5 outfielder leagues, shallower leagues. Once again, if you're in a 10-man, that waiver wire looks good, I think you should feel free to drop Nimmo.
Yeah, I mean, I never understood. It's the same thing with Steer. How you could justify having a guy on your team that doesn't hit 35 to 40 home runs and hits anywhere under 250 batting average. And that's the key part. Like, what are you going to do? Like, they are subpar in all these categories, but yet they're starting every day and they're destroying your batting average category and then not really producing in the other ones. I don't understand it. That's why he's a drop guy. That's really just about it. Like, you can't justify having a guy like him on your team if he's not putting up at least the power numbers to make up for the difference. Because, it's like any other thing, right? You draft a home run guy to be a home run guy, you don't care. You draft a stolen base guy to be a stolen base guy, you don't care. But he's nothing. He's just mediocre at everything. So, like, he's just, instead of Brandon Nimmo, it's Brandon mediocre. It is what it is. And same thing with Spencer Steer. It's Spencer Steer mediocre. I can't.
Matt, do we have the haterade? Is the haterade there?
It's already demolished.
Oh, see, Matt already drank the whole. I could tell he already drank all of it.
Yeah, I'm already hyped up. I poured a second glass for this next guy, Andres Jimenez, playing for now the Toronto Blue Jays. And you know what? He's another one. Look, we were a fan of him maybe like 3 years ago, and his window is kind of pretty much gone. Over the last 2 weeks, he literally has 4 runs and 5 stolen bases, batting 143. On the season, a 194 with 3 bombs and 8 ribs and 8 stolen bases. Look, last year he had 30 stolen bases, 63 runs, ribs, 9 bombs, and 64 runs. I mean, and batting 252. He's another guy. Ooh, 30 stolen bases. Ooh, 252 batting average. Ooh, who cares? I honestly just don't see a value in having a guy like this in a pinch. Bench player, maybe in a deeper league, but he's not an everyday starter. But the problem is, you look around fantasy baseball and you look at start percentages, and he's starting in a lot of leagues, and that's even in 12-man, 10-man, 8-man leagues. Like, what are you doing? Like, he should not be on those kind of teams. 14-man, 15-man, deeper. Yes, he's a good middle infield play, good UT play. But you're talking in these shallow leagues where most of the fantasy community plays. Andres Jimenez just shouldn't even be rostered at this point. honestly, he's a flat out drop it like it's hot.
Well, before I jump in and give my take here on Jimenez, and then we move in actually to the starting pitcher, or not starting. I always say starting pitcher, the pitcher portion of this episode, with names like Grayson Rodriguez, Tanner Houck, and more coming up next. All right, so Jimenez is a little bit interesting for me. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I don't think he's a full-blown drop. I like the 8 steals. It's interesting. Matt mentioned how he stole 30, bags last year. He stole 30 bags the year before. 83rd percentile of sprint speed. He's fast, so I think he's definitely good for steals, and at second base, that's a position you can afford to have a guy, just be a steals guy, right? The thing is, I do genuinely believe the batting average from the last 2 years, he's probably going to be about a 250 hitter. Not good in points leagues, doesn't walk enough. So we're not really holding there. If you are good on steals, let's say you have a Bryce Terang, you wound up with him and Jimenez, then you're probably safe to move on. But I would say try and trade him first. Maybe you go to somebody in your league that needs steals and you talk about how the guy can steal 30 bags. The runs in the RBIs actually aren't bad, and Jimenez has been hitting, third, fourth, fifth in that Blue Jays lineup, which isn't a bad spot. So I think worst case scenario, you got yourself a 250 hitter, going to give you 30 plus steals, going to have some decent runs and RBIs, but he doesn't really hit for pop. There's not much pop in that bat. If he hits 10 home runs, you consider that lucky. So know what you have. I would try and trade first because, there's definitely a team in your league that needs steals. There's always a team in the league that needs steals. That's just how, the cookie crumbles sometimes in fantasy baseball. And, I think there's trade opportunity here on the drop it like a Tato meter. Once again, shallow leagues, drop him. Shallow leagues, he's done. You can cut him. Middle infielder type leagues, you're holding. Your AL onlys, you're definitely holding there. And then like your 15 man, still holding there, but you're probably looking to trade. You're looking to trade. If you need a pitcher and you're good on steals, you can move him for a pitcher because I just don't think there's upside here anymore. He's 26 years old. The story's kind of pretty much written. You look back at the last 2 years, and that's pretty much what I'm expecting from Andres Jimenez. So if that's good for you and it works for your team, yeah, sure, hold. But I'd still probably look in the trade and go in a different direction. But let's keep things pushing here because we took a long time on the hitters today. Let's move into the pitchers. Let's talk Alexis Diaz of the Cincinnati Reds. And I think it's over. I think it's, another young guy, but I don't know, man. I really don't. I'm not believing in it. Last year was a bad year. Even in 2023 when Alexis Diaz was an all-star, right? The ERA was high for a closer, 3.07. The FIP was a 3.52. If you're not familiar with FIP, it's fielding independent pitching. It's an ERA indicator, kind of shows you where the ERA should be rather than where it is. And the WHIP was even high for a closer at 1.18. Yeah, he had that stellar, rookie season in 2022, but I think the league has, Alexis Diaz's number now. Emilio Pagan's been there, a closer who's been doing it in the league here and there for a long time. And I think it would be silly to move away from him and give it to Diaz. His last outing was bad. On the season, 4 innings, only 2 strikeouts, 4 walks, 6.75 ERA, 9.03 FIP, and a 2 WHIP for Alexis Diaz, man. It just looks bad. 61% owned on Yahoo. He plays for the Reds. It's just a tough park to pitch in anyway. I don't know, man. I honestly, I hate to say it, but I really think it's a 10 out of 10 on the drop of like a Tato meter for me for Alexis Diaz. 51% owned. Sorry about that. 51% owned on Yahoo.
Yeah, and that's only because nobody really had him going into this season. He only just came back, but yet, there's no build-up time. It's not like we saw anything encouraging last year. He was still atrocious. So, I was one of those guys that got burned by him last year, and then, okay, we follow up with the same kind of performance. There is a world and a way where he gets sent back down and they devolve him, and that's just really going to get ugly from there, and things are going to spiral. So there's no getting right. I think he's pretty much washed, and at best, he's going to be a middle reliever come some point of the season, but never in high leverage situations again.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez of the Baltimore Orioles. This dude's dealing with a lat strain. Was shut down. They have him on a 15-day IL, but that's bearing no setbacks. That's bearing anything. But a lat strain can last a while. Like quite honestly, we've seen lat strains where they last 2 months, 3 months. And then, or they come back in 2, and then as they're ramping back up, we got to shut down, and now we're down for the rest of the season. Like, this is the unpredictability. instead of clogging up my IL, unless you have like a deep IL pool of like, seven spots, then yeah, sure. Then you hold on to them, which most leagues don't, right? Like even with the added COVID stuff, you max are probably at is 4. And the season is just looking more and more like fantasy football where the injuries are just piling up. So, it's not worth holding on to Grayson Rodriguez. Just drop this guy. It's not really worth it. Look, if we start hearing positive things, we're going to tell you to stash him. So just keep watching, and I'm going to keep telling you when the ebbs and flows of the Grayson Rodriguez saga is going to unfold. But right now, he's a flat-out drop.
Yeah, Matt, very well said. The only thing I'm going to add is, basically what you said. He will be on the stash episode again at one point, if it becomes relevant to stash Grayson Rodriguez. But right now, unless you have unlimited IL spots or like 7, like Matt said, he's a total drop for me. This next guy's interesting. It's Tanner Houck of the Boston Red Sox. And he's like a guilty pleasure for me, man. I've loved Tanner Houck over the years. He's got good stuff. It's just that there's a good pitcher in there somewhere. We don't always see it, right? He's like that magic 8 ball. You're gonna shake it, you never know what it's gonna say to you. That's like how I feel when I'm starting him in fantasy baseball. His last outing was good. It was against the White Sox, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, gave up a couple runs. Kept the guys off base with a 0.83 WHIP. Gets Cleveland in his next one on the 25th. That's probably today as you guys are listening to this. So if you have same day ads and you need a little streamer, I don't think it's the worst option. Was really, the numbers are horrible on the season with the over 70 ERA, the 1.66. Really came down to, his first couple of starts were bad. Then he got absolutely pummeled by the Rays on the 14th. There's better days ahead. We'll say that. He's definitely not a 70 ERA guy. Pitching's been tough too. I'll say that. I feel like this year more than any other, the waiver wire starting pitchers are just flying off the shelf. Even shallower leagues, they're just literally as soon as anyone has a good start, they get added. So if you're in a situation like that where there's nothing out there, I wouldn't just drop Houck to drop him because, like I said, he's got good stuff and there's a good starting pitcher somewhere in there. But he might be more of a play the matchup kind of guy. He might be more, okay, good matchup, start him, bad matchup, sit him type of ordeal. Or, you just look into the numbers. He's a righty. So if, you just check, you check splits. It's something I like to do, myself. You go get the team he's, going against. You see if they hit good against righties. If they do, you probably want to bench Houck. And at least till he could string together some good starts. He's a 5 or a 6 for me on the drop-o-meter. Once again, same thing applies here. So I'm going to say it about everybody. Shallower leagues, if there's good starting pitcher options, you can move on. Deeper leagues, we're probably holding Houck for a little bit longer. But if he gives us another 2 bad starts, I'm probably out. But I do know there's a good pitcher in there somewhere.
The fantasy community has been saying that for as long as the guy's been in the bigs. So at some point it'll all come together in his dreams. But anyway, Tanner Houck is a flat out drop for me. He's just a stream cupcake matchup. I'll add him again, but other than that, no, thank you. Let's move on though, just for time. Let's talk about David Bednar of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Quite honestly, look, I look at him and I go, well, we're all just hanging on to the fact that like he's a name, he's been good in the past, and he's been a good closer, and the guy that in front of him right now is just playing like he's not going to give up job. Yeah, Dennis Santana. He's not playing like he's going to give up the job. He's only had two bad outings, and quite honestly, he's gotten all the saves. And quite honestly, too, to stash Bednar right now is just not for me because even if he does get the job, how many saves is he really going to get? What, 23, 24? If he gets the job full time, he's able to keep it. We're not able to see the implosion that was last year. And then you look under the hood too, and his pitches are still flat like last year. I just don't know if he's going to be able to take the job out from under him. Right now, he's not in high leverage situations. He's a setup guy. And, he's only going to get the save on the days that Santana is not available. So, quite honestly, with Bednar, he still has to, outplay Santana. Santana has to lose his job in order to get it. And then Bednar has to retain it. With his flat pitches, I just don't foresee it. And Santana is looking a lot better than Bednar, even in the under the hood. So, quite honestly, I just don't foresee it happening. I think, if anything, Bednar will be, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty much eradicated from the team before there's an opportunity for him to even take over the job. So drop him. There's no point of owning him and stashing him right now for the hopes that he's going to take the job.
Yeah, man, I agree. He's definitely not a stash. I think he's a watch list kind of guy. 40% owned on Yahoo seems a little high at the moment. Yeah. Bednar's gotten it done. He was really bad last year, but he has been a closer before. So I definitely think he's worth at least watching and seeing how this plays out in Pittsburgh. They're a bad team anyway. It's they're 10-15 on the season, so it's not like they're going to win a lot of games anyway. I would definitely look for better options at closer and guys that are actually getting saves, to be honest. Same thing kind of applies for this next guy. It's Kirby Yates. We kind of thought at the beginning of the year that there might be a timeshare kind of situation and Yates might be involved with it for, the Dodgers. He hasn't been, has no saves, 1 win, has been pretty bad of late too, to be honest with you. Even the numbers on the year, 309 ERA, 103 whip, 11 innings, 23 strikeouts. You do like the strikeout to walk ratio, but other than that, he's not really giving you too much. If you play in those leagues where, like relief pitchers matter a lot, maybe, but 58% owned on Yahoo for a guy who's getting no saves, has an over 3 ERA, seems just like a bit much for me. Probably close to a 7 here on the drop-o-meter for Yates. Once again, if you're playing holds, leagues like situations like that where, relief pitchers are relevant, you can ignore this advice. But in most situations, Yates should not be owned. 58% is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many leagues out there playing draft and holds, but not draft and holds, playing holds leagues, and it is what it is. But Tanner Scott's a beast. We all knew it. We were just disappointed when he got shuttled off to San Diego, and those days were put behind us. But Tanner Scott already has 8, and I don't foresee it ever slowing down unless an injury occurs. And then again, you still got other names in the mix that are also just going to be able to throw curveballs in there. Evan Phillips was a closer for him last year and was good. I mean, I think if Scott goes down, there's going to be even bigger, committee, and Yates is never going to get the full unleash, especially with the way he's pitching right now. So it is what it is. Just moveon.com. But guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share the show. We truly appreciate bringing it to you every day. And by doing that, you help us do that every day. And when you're done, just check out this awesome thing Locked On's doing where they, you get a full recap of every game going on. It's on YouTube, and quite honestly, it's absolutely awesome. Check it out. But with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Yeah.